As a guest in someone's home, what is the most impolite thing a host has ever done to you? When I studied for a semester in France, I had a French homestay with an old woman. She had a lot of weird control issues and living with her was very stressful. She had printed rules all over the house, including some taped to our toilet seat. Some were basic rules like don't flush tampons, but one toilet rule was not to close the lid too loudly. One time I heard her shuffling outside while I was using the bathroom, then yell at me when she thought I closed the lid loudly. She cleaned my room daily and moved my belongings around. If I had my shirts in one drawer, I could be sure she'd move them to another drawer before I got home because other drawer was better for shirts. Same thing with my hairbrush and bottle of lotion on the dresser. I never felt like I could really settle in. On a weekly basis, just when I thought I'd learned all of her rules, she would add a new rule to yell at me about. One rule was to keep showers under 10 minutes. I was really good at abiding to this rule. Then a week before I left, probably no more than 6 minutes into my shower, the water ran cold. I was so angry and still had soap in my hair, so I came downstairs to confront her in nothing but a towel. It turned out she was entertaining guests and clearly shut off the hot water to show off to them. I guess she didn't count on me being angrily confrontational. She looked borderline terrified as I bitched her out wearing nothing but a towel with soap running down my face, then ran to turn the hot water back on. Near the end of my stay I learned her adult kids didn't talk to her and she was genuinely flummoxed as to why that was. The controlling ones never realize they're the ones with a problem. Stayed at my uncle's house for a couple of days with my younger sister. She's closer in age with our cousins, and I'm the oldest by 10 years. My uncle didn't like that my sister was playing with our cousin's toys, that she was too old and it bothered him. He's miserable and a territorial as Swede, and I could tell he was counting down the days until we left. He threatened my sister by saying he'll make her sleep in the garage, then proceeded to say things like, "I never really liked you guys anyway." What a moron. Once the one guy I got along with in high school invited me over to hang out. His mother demanded that I help her daughter clean up her hamster's cage. That was already pretty impolite. But anyway, that guy was really nice, so we went to his room, listened to music, talked, stuff like that, and he convinced me to stay over for dinner. Fast forward to dinner, they were all bitching about the food because they didn't like what she made. I just said, well, I love that, so I'm gonna have some more if that's okay, and for some reason she started bitching at me that I came into her house, was rude and criticized the food. I left. I felt like crap. What the frick though? Love the food. Thanks again, Mrs. Smith. How dare you, Peter. Went to visit a friend for the weekend and reminded her repeatedly that my flight was landing at 7 AM. She had issues with oversleeping, and would she be sure to be awake to let me in? Flight lands. I call. Goes straight to voicemail. This continues the entire cab ride to her apartment. So great, her phone is dead. When I get there, I find the intercom system is broken, so my attempts to buzz her are worthless. I sit outside her apartment building for close to an hour with my luggage before someone exits, and I can grab the door and go up. Pound on her door until she finally gets out of bed and opens up. She laughs. You know, I kinda forgot you were coming. Okay, literally texted you yesterday. Needless to say, we are no longer friends. As a child, less than 10 years old, I had a few friends whose parents would make me help with the chores. A play date would turn into a few hours of tidying rooms, dusting, folding laundry, etc. That happened to me in high school with more than one friend. In one case, I had to go help split wood all day long. Another time, I was given the option to help clean the house or mow a neighbor's lawn. Asked me repeatedly to come stay with them. I go stay for a weekend, and after one night they say they needed time alone and could I leave. Sounds like The Sims. Was invited to my SOS co-worker's house along with a few other people for a small party. When the pizza arrived, she told everyone they needed to give her $10 each to cover the cost. Some people, like myself, didn't have cash because we weren't expecting to need any. She tried to say anyone who didn't pay couldn't have any. Party died shortly after. If she had just said beforehand, hey, I want to throw a get together, I'll take care of the food, booze, drinks, etc. Everyone just toss me $10 to cover the cost, we'd have been totally fine with that. but don't spring that on someone by surprise then tell them they aren't allowed to eat. I'm from the south and like we would sooner die than make visitor feel like they should pay for a party we're hosting. Esp without advance notice. At best, you may also bring food to reduce our burden. My wife is from New York and has told me basically every meal is that episode of Friends where the rich friends run up the bill and insist on splitting it evenly. Several years ago I had a work friend who used to make all kinds of homemade treats for everyone in the office. I always looked forward to her delicious baked goods. She invited me over to her apartment once. I went and I was initially greeted by upset dogs that didn't know who I was, so they were barking and nipping at me aggressively. I looked over that. I took my first step into the apartment and my shoes started crunching cat litter. The litter was scattered all over the kitchen floor. The dishes were growing things in the sink. The stovetop was caked in grime. Countertops covered in sticky residue with animal hair stuck to it. The furniture reeked of pee. The dog took a crap right in the middle of the floor and she didn't bother to pick it up until she noticed me visibly gagging. She only wiped up the poop with a paper towel. No cleaner. There was drug paraphernalia out in the open. There was an overwhelming stench of pee and crap. The bathroom was plucked straight out of my nightmares. She wasn't rude, but I did not have a good time. I never ate any more of her treats that she brought to work. That's disgusting. I don't blame you for not eating any more of her food. When I was about 17 or so, my family went to my wealthy, snobby uncle's house for a family Christmas. We're dog people, so everyone brought their dogs to hang out in the woods. During dinner we put them in the spacious, heated garage. My uncle, the prick, asked me to go feed the dogs right before dinner started. I went out to feed the 10 or so dogs we had and snuggle them a bit. When I went to go back inside, the door was locked. I must have pounded on that door for an hour. The garage required a number code to open it, so I couldn't get out that way. My uncle and the rest of my family just forgot that I existed and left me with the dogs for Christmas dinner. Honestly, the dogs were better company. Told me if I was hungry I could go home or make the food myself. I was invited over for lunch. They made themselves a meal and ate it in front of me. Excuse me, what the frick? At my wife's friend's house, the hostess would get up extra early and would bang pots and pans in the kitchen while shouting at the dog to get it to bark. Who's a good dog? Speak, speak. This last time took the cake though. When we got up in the morning, I went to the living room and my wife got in the shower. The hostess then started taking furniture apart in the guest bedroom and stacked all kinds of heavy things on top of my things, but only on my things. Then, she asked me to help her move a heavy bookshelf full of books and insisted that she herself had moved it before with all those books on there. OMFLOL, I'd shank a bee if I was woken up that way. When I was in university, I went on a short road trip with my friend and her parents. On the way back home, her dad decided to take a detour to visit an old friend he hadn't seen in a few decades. None of us, including my friend's mother, knew quite what we were in for, but oh boy, it was an experience. Guy lived in the middle of nowhere. Got to his house, walked in the door, and were greeted by an elderly woman. The guy's mother, in a hospital bed. Okay, a bit awkward, but she seemed like a sweet old lady. The house was filthy like nothing I'd ever seen before, and my friend and I were so uncomfortable that we made some excuse to go sit out in the car. A few minutes later her mother came running out of the house yelling at us to let her into the car. Turns out the guy gave them a tour of his house, including his filthy unusable kitchen. He told my friend's mother to clean it up a bit and make a nice dinner for all of us while he took friend's dad to look at his gun collection. Friend's mother said no and went back out to the front of the house, but unfortunately Granny had dementia and did not remember meeting her. Thought she was a burglar and starting screaming and swearing at her and threatening to shoot her. Then we went to the nicest restaurant in town, the only restaurant in town, where the guy lectured me and my friend about Jesus, implied that we were both S, and told us we were going to heck. Good times. I always love the aid when someone knows nothing about you, but pass judgment anyway. A friend invited me to come to her city on Friday to celebrate her birthday and she suggested I stay until Sunday so we could catch up. I arrived Friday night. We party and Saturday morning she has some friends over for breakfast. We are all at the table talking when someone mentions they are heading back to their city soon. She turns to me and asks, when do you leave? I have plans. Left double quotation mark. Apparently telling my wife's aunt that we needed to get our newborn to sleep and she needed to leave was impolite. No regrets. I mean, most people would get the hint though. When my brother and sister were young and I'd go see my dad, he'd say something like, well, the kids are gonna start getting ready for bed. And that was a pretty obvious cue for me to leave. Some people I could see being socially awkward, so you almost have to be direct. Asked me multiple times if I wanted a drink, and when I refused, continually shoved glasses of drinks in my face. Like, man, I've already explained I have the Asian glow and am allergic to alcohol. I can't get drunk easily because of how my body genetically treats alcohol, and if I do, it's extremely dangerous for me. Stop offering me alcohol. Years ago I dated a girl in Texas whose family and her uncle's family owned adjoining ranches, totally 30,000 acres. You heard me right. She asked if I wanted to go for the weekend to ride horses, swim, picnic and have fun. At 5 AM on Saturday morning her dad kicked my bed and said let's go. Let's go meant that I worked cattle on the ranch and baled hay until 10 PM that night. I told her to be prepared to head back home Sunday morning at daybreak. I told her that if her family was ever in town I would expect them to help me in my construction business. She acted like I should have considered the ranch experience fun. We broke up. Those kinds of people suck. They were trying to test you or some crap like that. Like you had to prove yourself to them. It's toxic entitlement. My ex-mill used to invite me to family gatherings and then proceed to get absolutely trashed and loudly insult and berate me in front of everyone. Everything from how I dressed, to my choice of major in college, how I wasn't good enough for her son, etc., etc. She just absolutely hated me from the get-go and didn't make a secret of it. After a couple of particularly bad episodes where this happened, I started to refuse to attend family functions if I knew she would be there. My ex would get mad at me about it, but he never once spoke up to defend me or tell her to stop. Big surprise that he and I aren't married anymore. Yeah, my ex-wife was the kind that would get drunk herself. But no matter who in her family said something bad about me, she actively took that person's side in the argument without knowing anything at all about it. Back in the day when LAN Halo was big, I was invited to a LAN party with a bunch of friends. Now, typically at this point, when I had been to sleepovers, blankets had been provided. Well, I show up to the party, we have a great time, and it's determined that it's time for bed by the host's parents. Sleeping places get claimed. I get put by the window. Fair enough. I ask his parents for a blanket. I get told that I can't use any. I get confused by this and ask what I'm supposed to use. They tell me it's not their problem. We all start getting settled down. I see the other guests pull our blankets from their bags. I shiver all night sleeping next to the drafty window. Like, WTF at his parents. But WTF at my friends for not telling me this is SOP at this dude's house. That's some balls for the parents to do that to you. Your friends too, but as a mom, I couldn't imagine not giving anyone a blanket in my home. They left. When I was making friends at the start of uni, I went around to one of my classmates' flats to work on some practice paper thing, and about 5 minutes and they said they'd be right back and walked out of the common room. I got to their flat at about 11 AM. I ended up leaving at about 2:30 because they just disappeared and weren't responding to messages. I saw them in uni the following week and they said they'd gone to the shop, but ended up going out for food with friends. They dropped out within about a month because they blew all their student loan on nights out. Invite someone over to a new place and then leave them to their own defenses. That is, telling them to figure it where the food is, bathroom is, pillows and blankets are. Like, that's so crappy. That's as bad as the people who walk around behind you trying to remove any trace of you ever having been there. I was staying at a good friend's house once upon a time. It was the first time I'd met his new girlfriend. She seemed the jealous type and wasn't too keen on him being friends with another girl. Anyways, we have a few drinks. Some other friends I hadn't seen forever come over. We have quite a few more drinks. Finally I call it quits and go to sleep in their spare bedroom. I don't rightly know how long later I wake up to someone in the room ripping the blankets off the bed and yelling. I'm confused as all heck. I'm still drunk, just woken up standing there in my underwear and t-shirt, and there are a bunch of people in the room. The girlfriend is yelling at me that I need to get my ass butt out of her house. I'm not welcome there. I'm a W. Lots of stuff. Not entirely sure because I was drunk and half awake. Turns out she somehow got it in her drunken mind that I was there to steal her boyfriend. My friend asks me if I'll just leave. Dude, it's 3 AM and I'm hammered. So I said frick it. Put on my pants, grabbed my bag and left. Ended up walking around for a few hours before going to a dentist and drinking copious amounts of coffee. Walked back, got my motorcycle and rode to a national forest and camped next to my bike until I felt like riding. Your friend is a freaking coward for even letting her get to that point, let alone indulging her fantasy and kicking you out. That's just straight up betrayal. My family, as in mom, dad, uncle, 3 adult children and their SOS spent days helping a friend replace her roof so she wouldn't have to pay for it to be done. Out in a rural area, had to sleep there and hours to take a trip into town for, say, food. She didn't feed us the entire time we were there. My mom was in her pantry scrounging out whatever random cans she could find so there would be something to eat, before doing shopping herself and preparing all the food while our friend was just wafting around doing neither work on the roof nor support for the people who were. My dad and my uncle got injured doing that roof as well. But hey, our friend saved money so all's well, right? I was invited to my girlfriend's sister's house for the first time to meet her and her husband. We arrived around 2 PM. I brought a case of beer. He worked on his new deck with some of his friends until 1030 PM without stopping to have a beer or chat. Now, I get that he probably had this whole thing planned out with his buddies to get the project done. But why would his wife invite me over on that particular day? I definitely drank some beers though. Went for a playdate as a kid and the girl wrecked all her toys and then tried to blame it on me. Her parents just apologized to me because apparently she did that a lot and I just hung out with her mom for the rest of the playdate, lol. In high school I went to a friend's house for the first time for a birthday slumber party. In the morning we were all sitting around the table waiting for breakfast and their dog was walking around and checking everyone out. I absent-mindedly reached down and pet the dog and my friend's mom immediately snapped at me for petting the dog at the table and told me to go wash my hands. I wasn't going to be touching anyone's food but my own, and at my house there were no rules about petting the cat at the table. As a shy person who doesn't like confrontation, I was pretty upset. On a college choir trip, various community members volunteered to host groups of our choir at their home overnight. The community members could host anywhere from 2 to 6 people. Usually if you were in a larger group, the house you were staying at was big and swanky. I was in a group of 5 in a fancy beach town in Florida. We were all excited when we drove up. Giant house, huge lighted pool with a slide and palm trees. When we got inside we were shown the one extra room that we were all sleeping in. Told that the pool was off limits but their kids kept asking us to go swim with them. The parents laughed smugly when the kids asked us to swim. Then the kids started to laugh. The one bathroom for all 5 of us had a tub and no shower, which would have been weird, but the tub belonged to the cat. It housed the litter box and toys. When we asked where we could shower or bathe, they said we could move the cat's box and toys. None of us took the chance. Dang, that's just rotten. Seems like that would be something the adults should have taken care of. First internship, new city, was quite young so my family made me stay at an acquaintance's place. Things were off from the start. Heard their elder daughter, she was in her late 20s or early 30s, having a screaming match with her mother about not wanting me in the house, hating how she was being asked to make small talk with me, etc. I would have been happier staying with my friends. The family had insisted that I stay with them. I was given their son's room and was told to not lock the door at night or day because the son needed to come and go as he pleased, as if knocking was an unheard of practice. Few days in, they had a house guest, so I moved to sleep on the floor in the elder daughter's room. At night she proceeded to complain to the younger one about how some people take too much time in the bathroom and that they should be grateful we're letting them stay. I used to occupy the bathroom for 20 minutes each morning to finish up all my business. They had 2 other bathrooms in the house and yet somehow the one I was in, at the time I was in, was always needed. Crap hit the ceiling when the mother discovered I had used the bathroom dustbin to dispose off sanitary napkins. I has disposed them off responsibly and very properly. I was berated for quite a while and was told that the big city culture is different in their eyes. I was from a small city. It's like calling Philadelphia a small city because you live in Chicago. My using the dustbin had corrupted it because they believed menstrual blood to be unhygienic or some regressive crap like that. She told me it was an expensive dustbin and now the set was ruined cause they'll have to throw it. I lost my cool and told my parents about it. I guess I had sounded a little too tearful. My father decided to take the next flight and surprise me for my birthday. I was camping at the city library when he turned up. One of my best memories to date. We went to their place. I got my suitcase. There was no need to pack because I was living out of the suitcase since they decided to give me a shelf in the bathroom. The shelf was the size of an airplane overhead compartment. You could keep a maximum of 4 sets of clothes at one time. I kept some money on the bed for their dustbin and left. The next couple of days were amazing. My dad stayed with me for the Christmas holidays. We bought books, watched movies and chilled whenever I got free from work. I hope to host them someday, just to show them what real hospitality looks like. I went over to my best friend's house for his birthday party. We do all the normal staying up all night stuff and had a good time. I wake up and me and my friend are just talking and hanging out when his mom comes in and starts making breakfast. Pretty normal conversation going, and I made a joke about how my friend was dead, set on joining the military and how we can't stop him now. His mom went apeshit. How dare you say I can't control my own son? Her and the dad were vets too. So this freak out puzzled me. My friend and me look at each other for a solid 2 seconds. He's literally just as puzzled as I am. And all he could think to say was, "Say you're sorry bro." And I just had to apologize even though I had no clue what I did wrong. I called my mom to pick me up as soon as she left the room. She eventually tried to stop him from joining the military. The second he turned 18 he joined the Marines. She was not happy about that. They're never happy when they realize they don't have total power and control. I had a friend in my street at the age of 8 or 9. He came to my house once or twice. My parents were always welcoming people but we didn't have much. Anyway, his parents had a big house. I would say like 500k plus a fancy car. It was a hot summer's day and I was thirsty after 2 hours of playing soccer in their garden. When I asked my friend for some water the parents told me to go home. Never went back there after that. My guests aren't even full in my apartment when I ask them if they want something to drink. As a kid I went to a friend's house 2 or 3 times. They had a big bathroom upstairs next to her room and a guest bathroom downstairs. I told her I'd go use the toilet and while washing my hands I heard her mother say to her, "Tell your friend to use the bathroom downstairs." It was so odd to me that they didn't want me to use the big one. They also accused me of stealing her Barbies, so they were an odd family overall. When I was out of work, a friend invited my family to use their lake house for a weekend vacation, since we couldn't really afford to go anywhere. Really nice. On Saturday, he calls up and says, "Hey, we'll be joining you and we'd really appreciate it if you could sleep in the basement." I would have rather not even gone. I once worked with someone that was gloating and bragging about how rude they were to their sister-in-law. I was astonished at his story and just stared him down. I had no words. Long story short, he did not get along with his wife's family, and they lived out of state. His wife's sister came to visit them, as they had a new baby and she was to help them for a week. He bragged how he convinced his wife that it would be better for her sister to sleep on the couch in the living room instead of the baby's room. He then began to explain to me that his computer was in the living room and he was planning on playing WoW all night long with the sound up and no headphones, just to make things miserable for his sister-in-law. Never mind the fact that she was there to help his wife with the baby and help with the house chores. Such a douche. I remember visiting my friend at her house and she was called for dinner. She told me to come down to the table and I sat next to her. Her and her family began to eat dinner while I sat and watched. After they were done, her dad looked at me and said, "Oh, I hope you weren't hungry," really sarcastically. I was actually really hungry and I just remembered thinking, what the frick. I've never had that one happen, but it does sound similar to some other posts I've read. Actually, now that I think of it, my mom did do that to one of my friends. While we ate, she made him sit outside. I never understood it. My friend's grandmother knew we had a snowstorm and told me I could stay till my stepfather could pick me up. I stayed the weekend already and didn't know the snow would be this bad. I stayed a few days extra and she started complaining and drinking about everything. My friend egged her on and her grandma got so mad she told me to leave in the next hour or she will call the police. I was 19 at the time but didn't drive, have seizures, and was shocked. My boyfriend had to call a taxi for me and have it drive me all the way back to my hometown over an hour away. My friend kept yelling and causing more stress and I got in the middle of it. I usually always bring some food and drinks to share and never had a problem before really unless she drank, but she never took it out on me. But this time my friend let me get dragged into it. When I was leaving she told me to stay and was crying and just was not comfortable situation. I had to take my bags to the car. She never had pillows or blankets for me so always brought them and laptop bag and left. Yeah, that isn't your friend. That right there is a B. It may be out of context but I really can't think of a context that makes that okay. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.